Bethesda's been banging out new editions of Skyrim faster than something from the Elder Scrolls universe that moves really, really fast. Bethesda Game Studio's last big title was Fallout 4, which, believe it or not, came out well over 2 years ago now. So, is it maybe about time we had a new game from them?
Bethesda Studio exec Todd Howard has just hinted that the company's next big title is coming soon. Howard told the Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences Game Makers Notebook podcast that the company...
That is what it's called. That's the full name.
You were choosing words. I was doing an exaggerated gasp to illustrate that. If that wasn't illustrated.
To illustrate the length, the comic length of the...
He told them that the company is working on a new animation engine, which is going to be used on a project Bethesda currently have in pre-production. But Howard also mentions they are using their old system for a project which is in full production. Now, nobody is sure what this full production project is, but since Howard said the project was far along enough they couldn't implement the new animation engine, possibly means it's close to being announced. This was pointed out by YouTuber JustDom. In the interview, Howard also mentions there are 300 people working on games at Bethesda Game Studio, and mobile games are important to them.
JustDom highlights that later on in the interview, Howard talks about the pressures of finishing a game. Howard says, quote, "You forget if you haven't moved in a while, moving is terrible, or having a child. Not terrible, but the pressures of it. You forget how hard it is to finish a game."
I feel
a Freudian slip from Todd Howard.
I feel like he was going to get home and get hammered by the wife. What do you mean about having a child? It's terrible. And then he just checked himself and then just...
I love that was his analogy. You know how it's terrible when you have a child, right? Well, game development is like that. Now, you can speculate from these slightly emotional comments that Howard and Bethesda are currently hard at work finishing a game. That's kind of what it sounds like. And now you're probably thinking, what are these mysterious projects that Bethesda has been working on? Well, if you cast your mind back to June 2017, it was rumoured Bethesda were going to unveil a new space-based RPG called Starfield at their E3 2017 conference. That turned out to be false. Not much is known about Starfield, but it does supposedly take place in the Fallout universe and is set in the far future.
As for the name, Starfield, it's based on a trademark registered by Bethesda's parent company ZeniMax years ago. So it's possible the full production project Howard refers to is Starfield, but what about the pre-production project? There was another rumour a while ago that Bethesda had been secretly contracted by TV network HBO to develop an open world RPG based on Game of Thrones, and it would be the next big project after Starfield. Following the rumour, a listing for Bethesda Game of Thrones appeared on the website for US retailer Target, but this turned out to be a hoax, and the listing was not for a real product. So what else could this pre-production project be?
Well, it's possible that it could be another entry in the Elder Scrolls series, but Bethesda have said before that a new Elder Scrolls game is still a long way off, and at least 2 more games would be made before another Elder Scrolls game. Now that comes from 2016 when Howard said they're working on 2 games, neither of which are Elder Scrolls titles. We should reiterate that this is all speculation and joining up the dots at the moment. Nothing has been confirmed, of course, by Bethesda or Todd Howard, so take everything you hear with a grain of salt.
So if we can conclude from the way that Todd Howard is speaking in this interview that he is near the end of a project, he is finalized, I mean, why else would you compare it to childbirth like that? I mean, he's obviously going through it, and that's why he's talking like that, right? Because they're just about to finish a game. If their prior record has anything to do with matters, which it does because it's Todd Howard's done it before. In E3 2015, he announced Fallout 4 out of the blue. Fallout 4 is coming in November, and then they released the mobile version, Fallout Shelter version of the game, that very same day. That's the way he does things, because they kind of showed off Skyrim in 2011 E3. They released it that November again. With that in mind, with the past track record, if I was a betting man, which I'm not, if I was like a respected games journalist, which again I'm not, or if I was an analyst or for a market company, research company or whatever, which I'm none of these things, I would put my money, and I would write articles, and I would be saying in interviews, we'll be hearing about the game that they're releasing in E3 this year, and second week of November is when Starfield, or whatever the hell it's called, will be coming out.
Spaceland, I don't know. The thing is, a lot of signs pointing towards it, right? That's the thing. It's not just like one leak or one rumour or one... It's like a few quite obvious signs, really, that are pointing towards it. It kind of makes absolute sense anyway, as well. If they haven't released the game since Fallout 4. Bethesda Game Studios now, not Bethesda the publisher. So they haven't come out with a game since Fallout 4. So it's kind of feels about right now, and it'll be about 3 years. If they do release a game this year, it'll be about 3 years since Fallout 4 by then. Yeah, it makes absolute sense. Hopefully it does happen, because I do like Bethesda games. I do enjoy them. So fingers crossed.
Yeah,
Let's wait and see.
3 years is about right for a company who are working on the same engine to develop new assets for a new game. That's about right. It seems about right to me. What the game in pre-production is another question. The fact that they've only got 300 people working at Bethesda development, it seems like it seems like they should have a lot more by now. A huge studio like themselves, a huge publisher, which is Bethesda, should have more resources than that. Like you think about Assassin's Creed, Ubisoft have 1,500 people working on Assassin's Creed. There's a different way of working, obviously, here. Back to the pre-production, game that's in pre-production, you've got to assume that maybe 50 people, maybe even less, are working on that one. So that's still in concept. Wonder what that game is. It's not an Elder Scrolls. Is it another Fallout?
That's the thing, is the way that the current model is one fantasy RPG, one sci-fi shooter type thing. I wouldn't be surprised to see just an evolution of that, where you've got a different kind of medieval fantasy-ish type thing and a different kind of sci-fi thing. It's perfectly reasonable, but hopefully it will be something. Hopefully it will be something that we're not expecting at all. That is the ideal, right? We want to be surprised and stuff. So I'm just eager to find out what the next game is going to be. And to be honest, hopefully it's not just another Fallout game or just another Elder Scrolls game. I mean, I do love those things, but I just want to see something new.
Starfield, right? So I mean, space RPGs, space Skyrim in essence. Which would be who's done that
Space
before?
Rim.
I mean, how many have we done? Space Rim. How many of them we had recently, like a space RPG? Not many.
No.
Not many, so I would love to see that. I would love to see one in November, second week in November the 10th or the 11th. Mark your diaries.
So there you go, those are some clues that point towards Bethesda Game Studios making another game. What do you think it's going to be? Do you think they're even working on a game for release this year? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments. Remember to like the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this every single day. There's another video right there which you could watch right now if you want, and the link to Patreon if you want to support the channel. See you next time.